They thought they could shake the world's most powerful navy. Instead, they sent a $60 million fighter jet straight into the bottom of the Red Sea. On April 28, 2025, during what was supposed to be a routine operation, an F/A-18E Super Hornet was being towed across the deck of the USS Harry S. Truman. Moments later, it was gone, overboard, along with the towing vehicle. And all of it happened in the middle of a live threat scenario. Why? Because the Truman wasn't cruising peacefully, it was under attack. Iranian-backed Houthi rebels had launched drones and missiles toward the U.S. aircraft carrier. And as the crew scrambled to respond, changing course, moving fast, the combination of chaos, movement, and timing led to one of the most expensive single aircraft losses in recent naval history. One sailor injured, the jet lost at sea. The cost? Over $60 million. And the message? Don't underestimate how real this conflict is going. But this wasn't just a mechanical accident. And it definitely wasn't the end. Because what followed wasn't just an investigation, it was an escalation. What kind of threats are the Houthis really posing? How did a U.S. supercarrier lose a jet under attack? And how far will the Navy go to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Let's break it down, because this wasn't just a slip. It was a signal. On April 28, 2025, the Harry S. Truman was operating in the Red Sea, part of a high-alert mission group tasked with monitoring Houthi rebel movements off the coast of Yemen. Everything on the flight deck seemed to follow routine. F/A-18 Super Hornets lined up, deck crews in motion, maintenance operations underway. But beneath the surface, tension was rising fast. Earlier that morning, intelligence intercepted signals pointing to a possible attack. Drones, missiles. Something was coming. The ship's alert level was raised. Watchstanders in the Combat Information Center scanned for any irregularities. And then it happened. Radar lit up. Multiple targets inbound. Fast, low, and hostile. The Houthi rebels had just launched a coordinated attack. Drones approached from different angles, some armed, some likely decoys. Defensive systems powered on. CIWS cannons began to spin. Aegis radars locked in. The carrier group snapped into action. That's when the chaos hit the deck. A deck crew had been towing an F/A-18 Super Hornet, a $60 million jet across the flight deck using a heavy-duty tractor. The towing operation was mid-route when the Truman began executing rapid maneuvering protocols to evade the incoming threats. The ship swerved, cutting through waves with aggressive turns, and the jet and its tow rig never stood a chance. The sudden lateral force, combined with wet, pitching metal, caused the aircraft to break loose. The deck crew shouted, scrambled, but it was already too late. In less than 5 seconds, the 60,000-pound aircraft slid, tipped, and disappeared off the edge of the flight deck. The tow tractor went with it. A sailor working near the towing point was injured in the commotion, and later reported to have suffered only minor injuries. But the aircraft? Gone. Sunk. Somewhere beneath the Red Sea, resting on the ocean floor. Initial Navy statements call it a non-combat accident, a technical phrase that simply means no weapons were directly involved. But insiders knew better. This wasn't bad luck. It was the result of a live combat situation unfolding in real time. The Truman didn't lose a jet on a sunny training day. It lost a jet during a live drone and missile attack from Iranian-backed insurgents. CNN later reported that the evasive maneuvering was in response to multiple Houthi launch signals. Sources confirmed to the U.S. Naval Institute that the attack was genuine and very close. And here's the part that matters the most. The Truman didn't even stop operations. The flight deck crews kept launching aircraft. Strike groups responded. Systems remained locked on potential threats. Because when you're floating in hostile waters with 5,000 lives on board, hesitation isn't an option. It was a rare moment. a multi-million-dollar jet lost not in battle, but because the battle was happening around it. Fast, unexpected, real. And the Houthis? They didn't just cost the US a jet, they escalated something far bigger. The USS Harry S. Truman wasn't in the Red Sea by accident. By April 2025, the carrier strike group centered around the Truman had been redeployed to the region in response to the escalating Houthi attacks on commercial shipping lanes, US surveillance drones, and allied naval vessels. The Red Sea, once a highway for international trade, had become a hot zone, and the US Navy was now right in the middle of it. Just weeks before this incident, Houthi rebels had claimed responsibility for downing at least 7 US MQ-9 Reaper drones, each worth around $26 million. These weren't accidents. The Houthis had begun targeting anything associated with American intelligence or force projection in the region. The message was clear: they wanted the US forces out. But Washington had no intention of leaving. The Truman was deployed as a forward deterrent, a mobile airbase capable of launching strikes, defending maritime traffic, and responding instantly to threats. Its presence was also symbolic. A 100,000-ton supercarrier just doesn't show up quietly. It signals dominance, and it's backed by destroyers, cruisers, submarines, and hundreds of aircraft. This mission was part of a larger U.S. operation known officially as Operation Rough Rider, aimed at pressuring Houthi capabilities through sustained airstrikes and naval blockades. In that role, the Truman launched dozens of sorties per day against radar sites, weapons depots, and suspected command centers inside Yemen. The tempo was relentless. But with visibility came vulnerability. The Houthi rebels, heavily supported with Iranian weapons and tech, began focusing more of their attention on high-value naval assets, including the Truman. Intelligence reports and defense insiders confirmed that the Houthis were experimenting with multi-axis attacks, combining drone swarms with ballistic missile launches in an attempt to overwhelm even the advanced defense system. That's what the Truman was dealing with on April 28th. It wasn't just another day at sea, it was a front line. And when a carrier strike group has to shift formation under fire, anything unsecured becomes a liability. Even a $60 million fighter jet being towed across the deck. So when the Truman executed evasive maneuvers that day, it wasn't just reacting to radar signals. It was responding to a real and evolving threat. To understand how a $60 million fighter jet ended up at the bottom of the Red Sea, you need to understand who forced that situation: the Houthis. Shooting down drones, hitting tankers, or attacking an aircraft carrier, even symbolically, gives the Houthis massive credibility among their supporters and global attention. And that's where the USS Harry S. Truman enters the picture. The carrier was not just a target of opportunity, it was the symbol of U.S. military power in the region. On April 28th, when the Houthis launched drones and missiles toward the Truman, it wasn't a random strike, it was deliberate. A chance to make headlines, a chance to say, "We can reach you." It didn't matter that none of the projectiles made direct impact. The attack forced a real-time response, maneuvers, chaos, and during that chaos, the Super Hornet was lost. So when people ask why the Houthis would provoke a global superpower, the answer is simple. Because to them, even forcing the US Navy to react, even making it bleed equipment, is a form of victory. And every drone launched, every missile fired, is another shot in that propaganda war. The US Navy doesn't take losses lightly, especially when not one of its fighter jets ends up on the ocean floor during a live enemy attack. In the hours following the April 28th incident, the atmosphere aboard the USS Harry S. Truman shifted, not just to defense, but to retaliation. While the Navy officially called the loss of the F/A-18E Super Hornet a non-combat incident, insiders knew better. This was the result of a hostile action, and that meant a response was coming fast. What most of the world didn't see was what happened behind the scenes. Satellite imagery, drone surveillance, and radar telemetry had already identified the launch zones of the Houthi drones and missiles, scattered across western Yemen. One site was located in the hills near Al Hodeida. Another, further inland, was believed to house a mobile command unit linked to Iranian-supplied radar gear. Command didn't wait for press conferences. Within hours, a package of retaliatory airstrikes was approved. The operation, classified but widely understood to be part of Operation Ruff, involved a multi-phase strike coordinated between the Truman's Air Wing and nearby Arleigh Burke-class destroyers. Aircraft were fueled. Weapons were loaded. EA-18G Growlers launched first. Their job was to jam the Houthi sensors and shut down early warning systems. Seconds later, the first wave of F/A-18 Super Hornets screamed off the flight deck, fully armed with JDAMs and HARM missiles. Their targets? A mobile radar unit hidden near the coast, a drone launch facility linked to previous Red Sea attacks, and a suspected command bunker coordinating strikes on U.S. assets. Simultaneously, destroyers in the regions opened their vertical launch systems and fired a barrage of Tomahawk cruise missiles, each programmed with GPS coordinates derived from real-time drone footage. The Tomahawks flew low and fast, hugging the terrain too quick for most surface-to-air systems to react. The result? Multiple confirmed hits. Secondary explosions lit up the desert sky. Intercepted comms from Houthi sources indicated confusion, panic, and silence. Several radar sites went dark. Communications blacked out. ISR platforms confirmed the destruction of at least 2 key operational sites. But this wasn't just about hitting back. This was about reestablishing control. The Pentagon, though publicly tightly lipped, made it clear behind closed doors. If Houthis continue to escalate, U.S. forces will escalate harder. Since mid-March 2025, the U.S. has conducted over 800 precision strikes on Houthi targets. April 28th wasn't an outlier. It was part of a larger campaign to suppress their expanding capabilities. And while most of those strikes go unreported in mainstream media, they send a loud message in the region. If you shoot at the U.S. Navy, you won't like what comes next. Still, the stakes are high. Every U.S. strike risks further entanglement in Yemen's civil war. Every retaliatory hit draws condemnation from some corners of the international community. But for the Navy, the mission remains clear. Keep the shipping lanes open, protect Allied forces, and respond to threats fast. So yes, a fighter jet fell into the Red Sea, but it didn't end there. It triggered another link in the chain reaction that's been unfolding for months. A low-grade shadow war stretching from the desert hills of Yemen to the steel decks of American supercarriers. And the Houthis? They fired. But they forgot one thing. The U.S. doesn't always respond with words. Sometimes the answer comes at 500 knots, with afterburners and a lock-on tone. The Red Sea isn't just another patch of water. It's one of the most critical maritime choke points on the planet. Roughly 10% of all global trade flows through this region. Oil tankers, container ships, military convoys, all squeeze through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the narrow southern gateway between the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. If that route is disrupted, the consequences ripple across the globe. And now, that choke point has become a battlefield. The incident aboard the USS Harry S. Truman isn't just a footnote in naval history, it's a warning shot for the world. Because if a $60 million U.S. fighter jet can be lost during evasive maneuvers, caused by a rebel drone and a missile assault? Imagine what happens to commercial shipping without those same defenses. Houthi attacks are no longer random. They are calculated, coordinated, and increasingly bold. Their growing arsenal, fueled by Iranian supply lines, includes anti-ship missiles, loitering drones, and GPS-guided rockets. These aren't homemade launchers anymore. This is serious hardware. And it's changing how the U.S. Navy operates in the region. To protect freedom of navigation, the U.S. is now committing more firepower, more ISR assets, and more deterrence capability to the Red Sea than it has in years. Carrier strike groups like Truman's aren't just symbolic, they're essential. But there's a cost. With every escalation, the risk of a wider conflict grows. A miscalculated strike, a drone that hits the wrong ship, a misidentified target, any of these could draw more nations into direct confrontation. That's the razor's edge the world is now balancing on. So, when a fighter jet falls into the sea because of a rebel missile threat, it's not just an isolated loss, it's a signal. The Red Sea is no longer safe. And if the world wants to keep its goods moving, if nations want to avoid economic fallout and military entanglement, the threats coming out of Yemen can't be ignored. Because this isn't just a regional issue anymore, it's global. What do you think? Was the loss of the Super Hornet just bad luck? Or a sign that these Houthi attacks are getting way too close for comfort? We want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Should the U.S. respond harder to threats like this? Or is it time to rethink our presence in the Red Sea altogether? Let's open it up and start the conversation below. And hey, if you love real military stories, carrier ops, and unfiltered breakdowns from the front lines, subscribe to the channel, hit that like button to support the mission, and share your take in the comments. And most importantly, join the fleet, because this isn't just a channel, it's a crew. The loss of the FA-18E Super Hornet from the USS Harry S. Truman wasn't just a fluke, it was a warning of how thin the line is between controlled operations and combat chaos. And while the aircraft slipped beneath the surface, the message left behind couldn't be clearer. The U.S. Navy is being tested by drones, by missiles, by shadow tactics backed by Iranian weapons. And every time they're tested, they respond. We've already seen what that looks like. Retaliatory airstrikes, tomahawks in the sky, and enemy launch sites reduced to silence. But what we haven't seen yet is how far this will go. Because this isn't just about one jet. It's about keeping the Red Sea open, keeping American forces protected, and making sure that the next attack doesn't cost something even greater. So now another question turns to you. Was this incident just a freak accident caused by chaos, or sign that the balance in the Red Sea is starting to crack? Let us know what you think in the comments. Would you double down or pull back? And if you're into real defense stories, aircraft, carrier ops, and unfiltered frontline reporting, you're in the right place. Subscribe, hit the like button if this gave you a better view of the conflict, and above all, join the fleet. This mission, it's just getting started. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and stay ready.